the last 6 hours, Professor Mark Mozambique and Adele Barbados had been flying deeper and deeper over the jungle and into unknown territory. Although a storm had been raging for the last hour, that was the least of their problems. Out of the dark clouds came what they thought was another plane. As it got nearer, they soon realized it was a giant mosquito. Mark desperately tried to avoid it, but it was too late. Bruised and battered, but thankful to be alive, they tried to figure out what had happened, and also exactly where they were. Mark reassured Adele that someone would come looking for them, but she admitted she had told no one about the trip. In fact, she had no one to tell, as she had been orphaned very young. Mark felt enormous pity, for he too had lost his parents when he was a child. Perhaps that was why he felt so drawn to Adele, even though it had only been a few days ago that he first met her at the museum. He remembered he'd been working late when there was a quiet knock at the door.
Come in.
Hello, my name is Adele Barbados, and I've got a very old map in my bag that I think you should probably see.
Let's have a look at it, shall we?
Mark couldn't help but be intrigued. He was sure he'd seen the symbols on the map somewhere before. Adele had explained that as an expert in Egyptology and hieroglyphics, she had been working for an archaeologist called King West. As soon as he heard the name, Mark had bristled with anger and ranted and raved about how West was a villain, a thief, a desecrator of tombs. He would have gone on and on if Adele hadn't stopped him.
I know, that's precisely where I left him.
She realized that King West and his gang were criminals, and she didn't want them to get the treasure of the lost Ooga Looga tribe. That was it! That was where he'd seen the symbol before. But surely it was a fairy tale. A few minutes looking at the map had convinced him otherwise. It was genuine. It clearly showed the way to the tribe, and Adele had bravely stolen it from King West to bring to Mark. The only thing that puzzled them both was a small, strange object that had been found wrapped inside the map, and was now kept safely around Adele's neck. Little did they know that evil ears had been listening to their conversation. Unbeknown to Adele, King West had suspected her of betraying him to Mark Mozambique. But with careful planning, it could all work in King West's favor. He had placed a small transmitter inside the strange object found with the map. Now he would know exactly where it was and what was being said. He'd let Mark and Adele do all the hard work and get the treasure in the end. His trusted gang, Eddie East, Noddy North, and Sid South, were used to strong-arm tactics. They weren't afraid of banging a few heads to get what they wanted. What he heard pleased them all. Mark and Adele had taken the bait. They were going for the Ooga Looga's treasure. Time to celebrate. The next day, with sore heads, King West and his gang had set off in pursuit of Mark and Adele. Mark was grateful that the map was undamaged, but he knew they had to find somewhere to shelter and get food. The sun beat down. Fortunately, Mark had their jungle hats in the rucksack and a compass and binoculars to help locate their position. But wherever he looked, all he saw was thick jungle. Did anything live here? His question was answered by a scream from Adele. She was frozen with fear. A spider dangled in front of her. Mark couldn't help but laugh. After all, it was only a small spider. With eyes wide and a shaking hand, she stuttered out, "Spider!" and pointed behind Mark. He laughed again and casually brushed off what he thought were leaves from his shoulder. "It's all right," he said, and brushed the leaves off a second time. But they weren't out of trouble yet. Slowly, the drugged Mark and Adele came round. But where were they? They realized that they were in some kind of tribal hut and could hear a noise outside. At least they looked quite happy, he thought. Adele had discovered that they were in the Ooga Looga's village, and the paintings around the walls explained their history. Thousands of years ago, a giant spaceship had crashed into the sea near the village. Aliens aboard had been rescued by the tribe. They helped them to get their spaceship onto the beach to repair. As a thank you, the aliens left the Ooga Loogas a treasure of gold, including a solid gold bust of the alien leader. But Mark was still puzzled about one of the pictures that seemed to have a giant snake. What was that about? They were about to find out. Mark and Adele soon realized that they were in a lot of trouble. The aliens had left the villagers more than just the treasure. Giant bugs and a giant snake.
I hate snakes! That's what the snake is all about! It's there to protect the gold! We're going to be its dinner!
King West and his men had tracked the transmitter and had come ashore very close to the Ooga Looga's village. King West couldn't believe his ears. Not only had Mark and Adele led him to the treasure, the Ooga Loogas were also going to do their dirty work for them. His gang, who weren't the brightest around, at first didn't understand why their boss was so happy. But then they got it, and all enjoyed the joke. King West had heard enough. Getting their weapons together, they charged off to attack the village and get the treasure.
Of course! That's not his far!
Adele had realized the strange object around her neck was some sort of whistle, a snake charmer's whistle. The result was instant. The Ooga Loogas were amazed. The chief's wife waved them over. They were taking them to the treasure. Mark and Adele were very excited. They would be famous. They had solved the mystery of the Ooga Loogas. Even though the hut was small, it contained amazing treasures. In pride of place stood the alien bust, solid gold. Mark was fascinated, but as he went to touch it, the Ooga Looga chief called out.
Ooga.
He was warning Mark of something and gestured over to a golden plate that was nearby. Adele went over to it. The signs were ancient Egyptian, her speciality. The Ooga Looga chief nodded. The answer was there. Adele translated the signs. Beware to you who seek me out. Distant eyes will kill. Have no doubt. The bust was cursed. Mark and Adele shivered. Luckily, they weren't after the treasure. Their reward was in finding the Ooga Loogas. The treasure was best left where it was. Meanwhile, King West had sent his men ahead to the village, determined to get the treasure. Charging into the village and firing their guns, they met very little resistance. Mark and Adele rushed over to help, but were held back by King West's gang. King West strutted in.
Tie me to the treasure.
Even though the chief tried to stop him, King West only had eyes for one thing, the golden bust. Although he promised he'd share everything with his gang, he had no intention of keeping his word.
It's all mine.
What was going on? The bust seemed to be making a strange noise. No, it wasn't the bust. Where was it coming from? Everyone was happy. The Ooga Loogas had got their golden bust back. The snake wasn't fierce anymore. Even King West's gang had decided to give up being villains. Everyone was happy, it seemed, except Adele. Although this was a great day, she wished she had someone to share it with. As she explained that this was the only picture she had of her mother, Mark stepped back in amazement. Scrabbling for his wallet, he pulled out a scrappy photo, the missing half, his father, Adele's father. Now, everyone had something to celebrate.